Mind Over Matter podcast is sponsored by Village Blinds. Village Blinds is an independent, family-owned business with branches in East Kilbride, Bells Hill and Clarkston. With over 30 years' experience, their mission is simple: to provide each and every one of their customers with the highest quality blinds at an affordable price. Check out Village Blinds on Facebook.
Good evening and welcome to the Mind Over Matter podcast. I'm your host, James Downie. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have East Kilbride Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Coach Chris Fisher. How are you?
Very well, my man. How are you?
Good. I'm great, mate. Just,
First of all, listen, thanks very much for having us on. I really appreciate it, and I commend you for the work you're doing. It's a great cause, a great thing. So congratulations, mate. Well done.
No, thank you very much. And like I say, thank you for having yourself on as well, because you're going to open up about a lot of personal stories tonight.
Yeah.
And I can only commend you for that. And we've spoke on Messenger about what we're going to talk about tonight. So guys out there, this is very personal to Chris. It's very personal to me as well, because I went through the same thing. But we'll just take it where we go. We'll just take it back to the start. What was it like for young Chris, in family life and where you grew up?
I grew up in Newlandsmuir, East Kilbride, as you well know. Life was always good. Always good. We had a really good upbringing. My mum and dad raised us fantastic. My gran and granddad were brilliant. They were really, really good. My young life was good. It was good. A wee bit of a kind of troublemaker at times, always letting the RV boy, but it was good. Upbringing was good, mate.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And coming from East Kilbride, you're an East Kilbride boy as well, yeah?
Yep, for 37 years, mate. That's me. I think I'm 37-year-old guy, 37, born and bred in East Kilbride.
37 years young like myself, that's all right. Not too bad, isn't we, for 37, Chris, man?
All right.
We're doing all right, aye. Apart from I've got a beard now, so,
multitude of sins it hides.
Oh, God, aye.
You may have the sin I've got in my head.
We'll not go into that quite yet, man. We're just getting started. But like I say, growing up in East Kilbride, and and like I say, for the viewers out there, we're going to touch really deeper on Chris's life here, and we're going to start with a big word that everybody hates, depression, anxiety, mental health. Everybody hates talking about it, Chris. And for myself, I was the same for many years, and now I've got a TAD project, I've got a mental health project. I'm now lifting the stigma associated with mental health, and Chris is going to do that here for us, guys. So you've come on to talk about your personal dealings with mental health, and what was your understanding of depression? What was your understanding of mental health, Chris?
Well, for years, I would say I'd suffered for depression for pretty much all my life. But I would say, I was diagnosed first when I believe I was 21 when I was first diagnosed with depression. But growing up, as much as everything was great, everything was good, there was still this strange feeling in my life. It was a strange. I would get sad sometimes. I was desperate for kind of the affection of certain individuals, with Dad being the main one. Like, really, really struggled with something. I didn't know where it came from, and I didn't know what it was. And even up till I was diagnosed, it was a difficult thing to talk about. It's a lot more difficult, I think, for the older generation, because you were told to kind of pull your socks up. It's what you got to be sad about. So that kind of the old school upbringing I had, it was kind of similar, but my family were really good. But when we started to get the first real signs of it, I was kind of going off the rails a little bit back then. We went to see the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me with depression. But maybe some people, I still didn't get it. It still wasn't any information on it. I just believed that, right, I've got depression. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have any thoughts of just this horrible, overwhelming feeling of sadness all the time. Like, I would sometimes be happy, but I could turn a corner. I could be the click of a fingers, James, I could be as down could be. And that was kind of my first. I knew something wasn't right back then, coming in my 20s. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So can you tell us where that stemmed from, Chris?
Well, I luckily enough I can, because of the journey I took. I mean, it's a long story. I mean, there's loads of ups and downs and ins and outs. It's never life itself isn't a straight road, James. It's not a straight road at all. But having mental health problems, it's even more complicated. Something other people would maybe just brush off. It was like the biggest issue in life. So where I found that stemmed from only recently was when we'll kind of jump back and forth here, was it stemmed from a particular situation in my life when I was a young child, involving my father, who I love dearly. He's the greatest man alive. He really is. He's an incredible man. And to this day, since I came through this, I make a point of every day telling him how great he is for what he done. Do you know what I mean? So it started when I was on holiday, when I went to actually see a counsellor, because I believed there was a deeper thing to getting better other than taking tablets, because my personal experience with tablets actually led me down a worse path. So I mean, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it's against me being personal and my personal story. And when I was taking the tablets, that they made me worse. It was when I read the side effects and I seen the big bit at the bottom that said the specific suicidal thoughts, and I thought, geez, man, I can't. So I searched for alternative help, and it was to speak to a psychologist. And what we came to with the psychologist, amazingly, was he diagnosed me with an abandonment issue. And when we started to dig a little bit deeper into that, it's a story I hold close to my heart, and it's a story I genuinely love. A lot of people might think it's a bit of why because I love it so much, but it's such a powerful story for me. We were on holiday one year. I can't remember, it was in Spain somewhere, the full family, my mum and my aunties and all that were there. And I remember playing at the side of the pool. I was a young lad, maybe about 6 years old or something. I had a wee boat, I said earlier on. And the boat was on a lilo in the deep end of the pool. Now, you were always told, don't be around the pool without your armbands on and whatnot. But being a young boy and seeing your toy was almost like the carrot in front of your face. I thought, I can manage this, I know best. So I reached out to the lilo to try and grab the boat, and it was just out with my grasp, so slipped, fell in the water, and that's when it all hit the fan, if you can imagine. I can remember being under the water and being where I was in the water and looking up. My dad was at the kind of deep end at the side of the pool, talking to my then Uncle Paul. And as I'm under the water and the sun's shining, it was beautiful, the water was all glistening. I can remember shouting at my dad, desperately shouting, desperately shouting at my dad, desperate for help, and to no avail. And unbeknown to me, at that point, I was taking in water constantly. I was drowning, and then I get this warm, calm feeling came over us, and it was lights out, done.
Yeah.
So the abandonment issue that I've been diagnosed with, which makes total sense when we spoke about it, me and the counsellor, when me and the psychologist spoke about it, stemmed from that specific moment of a young child in desperation, of need of help, desperate for help. And through nobody else's fault other than my own, I couldn't get it. The person who I was looking to for help when it was my dad, of all people. In my mind, when the lights went out, he hadn't helped me. Now, that's a different thing to say, and don't take out of context. It's not that he didn't want to help. It's that he didn't know. So that's where the abandonment issue came in, and that's kind of where now the most amazing part of that story is, and we'll touch on that story again later on as we move on if we can, it was actually my dad that saved me. It was my dad that saved my life. I mean, there was a doctor there, I believe, and the doctor was struggling. I wasn't breathing. And just out of panic and total love, and put yourself in that position as a parent, looking at your child lifeless at the side of a pool, and there doesn't seem to be any help coming from somewhere. You have to find something really special deep inside to do what he done. And basically all he did, was my dad's done all his days, he just punched me as hard as he could in the chest, and the water came spouting out. But I never seen that part of that. Obviously, I was unconscious. I never seen that. I just remember kind of my next recollection was being in hospital in Spain, and that's where that left in my subconscious mind, that thing of, I always wondered why, to an unhealthy obsession, I adored my dad. I used to copy everything he'd done, and I wanted anything I'd done, James, anything I'd done at all would have been to gain his praise and to gain his acceptance almost.
Yeah, and, we all like to do that in our father, Chris. You know, it's one of the things we do as a man. You know, as a man and as a male. You know,
without a doubt. But this for me was an unhealthy obsession. I mean, I would copy everything they'd done. But when I didn't get what I was desperately needing or selfishly needing, that caused me to go down. Now, nobody knew what was going on in my subconscious. Nobody knew what was going on in my mind. But that situation had left me with a seed.
Chris, can I interrupt you there? I'm getting something's happening over this side. It's a bit technical. Just could you hold on a second?
Yeah.
Something quite technical. It's just to do with the sound, right? Hold on. Give me a second. I do apologise for that there, folks.
Are we back?
My apologies, Chris. Yeah, we're back on. It's just a lot of technical issues with the sound there. You know, I was hearing myself too much on your end. Everything's great. That's it. You can continue, man. My apologies. Very professional.
That's where it came from. We got to the bottom of that, and it was all to do with that specific time in my life, leaving me with should we say, planting the seed for what was to come later on in life.
Yeah.
You still hear me?
Like I say, it's very. Yeah. I can hear you. It's very touching. You know, like I say, it's hard to open up about this, especially going through what you went through. You know, especially with abandonment. You know, and we're always looking for that acceptance as a male. So how did you feel coming? You know, you were very young, but later on in life, how did you feel with the abandonment and stuff? You know, how did you handle that?
How did that affect me?
Yeah, and how did it affect you as well? Yeah.
Well, the way it would affect me, it all kind of boiled down to, it could be something really silly, James. It could be anything from when you get an abandonment issue. I mean, it's not something to be like, I know it sounds really silly, and it sounds strange to me as an adult hearing this, but that I have an abandonment issue. But it was, I mean, it could be anything, James. It could be somebody not returning a phone call. It could be a text message not being returned, or somebody. You would always have it in your mind that somebody had something up with you, if you get what I mean. It was almost your kind of question. You kind of struggled to trust people almost. You didn't give too much away, and when you did and you didn't get something back, it kind of knocked you for six. It was. I mean, the abandonment thing was something I didn't know too much about, to be honest, until recent times. But in my day-to-day life, it was. But I couldn't relate it to the abandonment issue. I could just relate it to how I felt in life. Do you know what I mean? Every day, when most people with depression was, it was worthlessness. It was just, you were never good enough. And it's by the way, when I say this certain thing, it's nobody else's fault, because you clearly are good enough for a lot of people. You're more than enough, and that's what people need to remember who have depressions. You are more than enough for everybody, and you are a special individual. But when you have the illness, it's a very difficult thing to understand that you are of value to people, and you feel you're a bit of a burden on people, and you don't feel like you're living up to certain people's expectations, James, and that's not what life is. Do you know what I mean? But that's what I kind of consumed myself with. And when you crave that, when you crave the attention, and you crave to live up to somebody's expectations, it can only lead to sadness, because like somebody who, say for talk's sake, a drug addict, and they crave, or an alcoholic, they crave these things, but that one thing's never enough. And when they get it again, they crave it again, and they crave it again, and they crave it. And that's where my mind spiraled out of control. It was never enough. It was never. So it became an unhealthy obsession to my downfall. That's how I live my life, and just till recently, till I got to this point.
Yeah, like I say, and it's a powerful thing. The mind thinks, it's very hard to deal with, especially anxiety and especially depression. And, like what you've went through, I can only commend you for telling that story, Chris,
Yeah, I think more people have got to talk, James. I think that's one of the things is people have to speak. I believe there still is a massive stigma with depression and opening up about it, especially. Not to put an agenda specific, but in males especially, I find it's a very difficult thing to open up about. But the best thing you can do is talk. Just talk. That's just tell people, just open up. You might be helping yourself, but you never know. You may well be helping somebody else who's a little bit further down the road with depression, and maybe just needs to hear that there's other people suffering and how they get help. So it's important we open our mouth on this subject, isn't it? Yeah,
of course. We all need to lift the stigma. There shouldn't be that associated with mental health. Talking about mental health should be like talking about a cut in your arm. It should be that easy.
Why do you think, James? Why do you think there's still a stigma with it? What do you think?
I just think generations are different, as we spoke on and touched on earlier. I think our generation now are like us trying to lift it. But everybody's not at that level where they can, and it's very unfortunate. And and I see it every day. I've got a lovely group on Facebook, the TAD Project, and everybody opens up about mental health, and it's private, it's confidential. However, that private and confidential can help you along the way, even speaking to a stranger. It doesn't have to be a friend. It doesn't have to be family. It can be somebody out with your family, and you've got to know that that's important too.
Yeah. Definitely, there's help everywhere. That's what the thing people got to remember is there is help everywhere. One of the things I found, part of particular my story when I was going through it was a particular time I felt alone, and I couldn't be any further from alone. You know what I mean? I have close friends, a really big family, close friends, loads of different people who cared deeply about me. But I would mask it from them. Do you know what I mean? But I didn't feel it was kind of selfish of me to feel it. I felt alone, but I had so many people to help me. And I would isolate myself from everybody. I wouldn't speak to anybody. And again, that in itself, if we're talking about opening up, when you just do start to clam up, it only spirals out of control. It makes it 10 times worse. So we have to speak. We have to speak.
Oh, we have to speak. We have to speak out, and that's what we're doing tonight. Is two men, we're speaking about mental health, and it's great. I'm so happy you're able to touch on it. So, can I ask you, going back, we spoke about, what you spoke about. How did that affect family life, Chris, for you, with regards to, your mum and maybe your good wife in the background,
Well, from now, mate, from having the depression, it was hell. I mean, like I said, I was first diagnosed when I was 21, and I had I just kind of walked away from a kind of football career. I was working with my granddad at the time, and being diagnosed then, I didn't really take it on board when I first went to the doctor, James. I never really took it on board as to how serious the issue was. And as I went through life, it was tough because it sounds really, but I keep going back to this, but I believe as much as my family were struggling, it was my dad that bore the brunt of it because of the hard time I gave him. That's where the strain was. It was my mum was always so supportive and so loving and so caring, and as was my dad, and so my whole family. But there was this issue, and it sounds crazy that I'm saying this just now. I keep going back to this specific thing, but that for me, it was just this thing with my dad. It was me. It was me desperate for something. So anything in life that happened, I would give my dad a bit of a hard time about it and whatnot. But in regards to relationships now, not so much now, but just before I went to see the counsellor, but leading up to things, like I said, I mean, I believed that going through life, James, as a young man with depression, I was kind of looking for things that make me happy. And one of the things I had in my head was I would find the woman of my dreams. I'd be married. I would open up my gym, which was always a dream of mine. Yeah. I would have a house. I'd have a secure job. And a car and whatnot, and we could plan a family and whatnot. And eventually we got to that stage, James, where I had all of these things, the boxes were all ticked, and I was left feeling empty.
Alone.
Where'd I go now? What does I do from here? I didn't have it in my head. I had put so much pressure on, so much onus on these thoughts of these specific material things, if you like. Yeah. These things will make me happy. And the kind of healthy-minded person would build on these things. They'd get the house and they'd have their gym, or they'd have their wife and they'd have kids, and they'd build an extension, or they'd expand their gym. I didn't have that mentality. I didn't understand that. I just thought that once I get these things, I'll be happy. And Christ, it was a kick in the balls when I got them, and it just, and that's when things got really scary. That's when things got really bad at that point, because leading through life, like you're asking, from when I was first diagnosed as 21, leading through life, I always had this in my head, James, that this was going to be, I'm a young man, there's an aim in life to have these certain things, and once I get them, I'm going to be good. And I had all these things, and I mean, people watching for the sidelines, certain friends and other people seeing maybe the gym and being married, and they would have seen Chris Fisher being happy and life and soul at a party. Deep inside, like most, you're dying, you're just, it's every single day, it's a hollow existence. As much as when you look at it, there's people out there that could only dream of having what I had at that point. But I didn't see it like that. I just see what happens now. Where the hell do I go for life now? And I couldn't see any road. And that's when that's when we'll probably touch on later on the kind of the bad side of depression, if you like, the kind of most extreme side of depression. That's when that kind of sunk in. So that's how it affected me. I mean, that's how it affected the family. Put a bit of a strain eventually. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It does, you know, but you think it's worse than it is, you know, at times, because you're suffering with depression, anxiety, and, you know, all that, you sometimes think that the burden you're putting on your family is too much, but it's not, you know, because they're there to help you, you know, and you don't think that way. You don't think that way, mate. So I can totally vibe in that, because I've felt like that as well, and it's a horrible, horrible thing.
It's tough. It's tough because, like you say, you don't want to be the burden. And the fact is, we would hear it quite a lot. I would hear it quite a lot from our family, but I eventually say to them, being a burden, you're not a burden at all, Chris. You're not a burden at all. It doesn't take it away. You still feel like you're kind of heavy load on your family. You'd be better. They'd be better if it wasn't there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. Like I say, and it's not that case. So anybody out there that's thinking like that, please just reach out and speak to your family, because you know they worry about you, so it's only going to make their worry worse when you're not speaking out and they think you're feeling some sort of way. Reach out to them, man. You know, you need
definitely.
to do that. So our next, sorry, Chris. Well, next topic, we're getting into something really deep here, and you know, for folk out there that, you know, this is a trigger word, as they say in the mental health. You know, and it's about suicide, you know, and I know you mentioned it and we spoke about it personally and the messages, and I thought to myself, you know, I was like, it's quite a heavy subject to touch on, especially for people out there that are going to hear this, you know. So you were speaking, can you tell us what it was like to feel that way? Because, you know, personally, I've never felt that way. My depression stemmed from things again, you know, but I'd never felt that way, and I can only imagine how it felt, you know. I couldn't. So could you touch on that for us, please?
It was horrible. Of course I can touch on it. And it's, by the way, something I don't mind. Like you said, it might be tough for people to hear certain things, but I think it's important to hear things. I think I've got an opportunity to... You all right? Is everyone okay? You're okay?
No, I'm looking at the comments of support for you, mate. There's loads of comments I can see, you know, and they're all very supportive.
Good. But the suicide thing, people may not know of me. They might not know that because it's not something generally people tend to speak about, and I only actually learned how to speak about it from when I seen my counsellor, and he actually made me go through the whole process of my thought process, what I had planned. And it wasn't until he gave me that opportunity, and by my God, there was tears shed, there was things said that they made me think, geez. So I take back to that time, and it was bloody low. It was really, really tough, mate. But to see me each day, you would never have thought so. Do you know what I mean? You would never have believed that's the thoughts. But I had everything planned. I had everything set in place. I was good to go. And it was a tough time, maybe, when you've got to find these times that things are never as bad as that circumstance. Yeah. Matt, at that time, I felt hollow. I felt lost. Deeply, deeply sad. I felt like I had nothing. There was drugs involved, drink involved. Try to mask this feeling, and really, when you're in that place, James, that cocktail of drinking drugs only makes it 10 times worse. So if everybody, if anybody out there that's in this position and they're feeding this illness with that, please stop. That's a strong thing I'm saying. Please stop feeding it with alcohol and drink. But yeah, James, that time was really, really tough. Like I said, I had previous thoughts of things like that, but this specific time was when I would particularly had everything planned. I had everything planked in place when I decided I was going to do it, and pushing on a wee bit for that when I did decide to do it. When I decided to that was the route I was going down. I mean, there's not really any. There's no any real way to describe it. There was no real. When I say there wasn't any thought process, you're not thinking rationally. It's you feel you're doing a favour. You feel like you're going to help everybody. And like you said there, rightly so, is your family are there to lean on, and they're there to help you. Yeah. And I was, when that happened, and I stood there just about looking to get, like, this is it, just to do it. It's a strange thing. I mean, I always looked at what's the meaning of life and what's the reason of being here. I heard, I believe or not, I heard my wee nephew's voice.
Listen, Chris, see if you feel at any time you want to stop, and you can stop, man. Take a minute. You know, it's like, it's a heavy subject. Are you all right?
It is what it is.
Okay, aye. Just for people out there, because this is. This is a hard subject to touch on,
So anyway, at that point, it was tough, but you always find when you're called upon and when things are really, really tough, I believe you're given a sign or a signals to pull you through. It depends. And at that point was my wee nephew Jack, and when I heard him, all I heard him saying was Uncle Chris, and when I heard that, I thought, shit, man, what am I doing? It was just like a flash. What are you doing? And I thought, man, this isn't for me. Man, I felt so scared. I felt so scared. I felt like a little boy again. I thought, and I was shaking. And at that point, I thought this isn't how it needs to go. I need to do something about this. I need to speak to more people. I had to source what the problem was. We touched on what the source of the problem was, but at this point, I didn't know. And I thought, I need to find what it is that's causing this, because this is getting too much. The burden's too much to bear. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to live, but I was petrified of dying. It was a horrible feeling, mate. Really, really tough. So that's when I decided. I opened up to my mum and dad a bit more, and they were fantastic. My wife, Jenny, she knew the rest of this stuff. So we decided we were going to look at getting, speaking to a counsellor. So that was the next step. We went back to the doctors actually to speak to the doctor. And at the time, I was wanting to ask the doctor if I could be referred to a counsellor, because previously they referred you to a counsellor back in the day. But when I went the second time, James, the doctor, it's maybe this a strain on NHS and what the kind of funding I've got, whatever it may be. But the doctor, they've now been given the burden to do the counselling themselves. They do the counselling there and then. And at that point, the reason I chose I didn't really accept that is because from my training background, and James, you'll know yourself, if you have an injury, you don't really go to your general practitioner for that injury. You go to a specialist in that field, which is a physiotherapist. Yeah. So in my training, I thought, well, it's sort of depression's in the mind. The general practitioner just covers things generally. I have to see a specialist. I have to. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's when
absolutely.
that's when I started to do my research and started to look at things. But that was a spark. That was the lowest point, mate. That was a real tough time. It was. And don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like as soon as that happened, everything was fine and I had clarity. Things were still tough. Do you know what I mean? I was still kind of making the wrong decisions and doing all these different things I shouldn't have been doing. It was a real tough time, but we're here now. We're going through. You know what I mean?
So your first steps to that, Chris, you know, because that's what I was going to ask you next. You know, was your first steps, and you know about medication as well, because obviously, as we know, you know, if you go to, you know, a counsellor or any type of specialist in the mental health, you know, avenue, you get medication, and like I say, what was that like for you? Because it was hell for me. I hated it because I couldn't relate with it. I thought it was going to make me worse. And so, what was it like for you?
Well, the thing with the doctor is anybody who's suffering, first and foremost, remember this is a kind of personal thing on my front. I'm not saying this is what anybody should do. Yeah. It's a personal journey for me. Everything's so personal with depression. Everything's so personal with the treatment that you get and the advice you receive and the people you speak to. So don't take this as personal advice. Your advice is this is my journey. Yeah. I went to the doctor and they obviously diagnosed with depression the second time, and they gave me tablets, and it was take the tablets, stick to the tablets. Maybe about 4 or 6 weeks they'll start to kick in. You'll get certain side effects and blah 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 blah. So I was taking the tablets, and I believe it was citalopram I was taking the first time. It was quite a strong dose, and Jesus man, they knocked hell at me. I was tired. I was jittery all the time, and I just didn't feel good. But I thought I'll give it the time, which you should do. I gave it the time, and when I was taking these tablets was when me and my wife had started to look at expanding the family. We decided to try and start having a baby. And this made my depression even worse, because one of the side effects from the tablets, James, was my libido disappeared. I never had a sex drive, if you get me. So I went to speak to the doctor again. And the doctor gave me an course of tablets. Again, it just didn't sit right. It was just, you take a tablet. And it's when I started to take these tablets that's when I started to really struggle and start to think, right, there's got to be a different avenue to go down here, because I was sitting in my wee flat one day, just myself, and I started to understand what was going on, and I started to understand the avenues I had to go to get better. And I can remember sitting after taking the second course tablet. I can't for the life of me remember the name of them, James, but I was taking these tablets for a few weeks, and I was sitting in the house, and again, just like a wave just come over it. I thought, Jesus, I'm struggling here, and I broke down. Tears just broke down, and again the panic set in, and that horrible feeling previously started to eat away at me. I thought, shit, I need to do a panic. I ran into the kitchen, I got the tablets, and for some reason I pulled out a pamphlet that you get with the tablets. And I started reading through, and obviously they're there to regulate the serotonin levels in your brain. But then you've got a list of 40 side effects. All these different things: common, least common, rare, very rare, common. Side effects, and one of the side effects from this tablet was the thoughts, the kind of horrible thoughts. And I thought, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not taking this. I can't risk it. But I believed at that point, you know, I was touch and go. I was still kind of really not in a good place. So I phoned up my wee Jenna, my wife. I says, well, first, I believe I phoned my mum as well. Phoned my dad. Phoned my gran. I was crying. I needed help. I needed to speak to somebody there and then. And that's when we went to the doctor, and the doctor mentioned about sectioning. He mentioned about maybe going to look to get you section, and I thought, Jesus, this is bad. Do you know what I mean? I believe I'm Chris Fisher. I'm going to go. Can I section here? Do you know what I mean? That's really panic. I thought, shit. And I said to the doctor, says, can I try counselling first? And he was like, we don't do that anymore. We've not got the resources. He says, I'd do it. But again, like I said previously, that wasn't enough for me. So I was very lucky. My wife, Jenna, as I said, she'd access to like a support unit thing and through her work for friends and family. Yes, and she put me on, I think it was a group called Time for Talking or something. And that day, with Jenna, in fact, Jenna gave me the number that day, James, and that saved me by far. Phoned him up straight away. And the young man, or young gentleman I spoke to on the phone was incredible. as soon as I done that, as soon as I did open up to this person who I didn't even know, I just opened up. I felt like there was a burden lifted off me. I felt a massive weight lifted off me. And I thought, right, I'm on the right path. And then moving forward, that's where we started to get better, and had the appointment with a counsellor and whatnot. So,
yeah, and like you say, you know, it's getting to that where you're taking these tablets, and you will experience their thoughts, and that's why I stopped taking mine. Citalopram are really strong, Chris, and I've took them as well, you know, and they made me feel horrible. You know, they did make me feel horrible, and that's why I stopped. But I'm not saying to people out there, don't stop taking medication. Redo your research and think about other things. I do a lot of natural medication now, and, you know, with CBD and all other things. But like I say, you know, do your research. And Chris is, you know, he had to research on your illness, and you done that quite a lot of that, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, no, that was one of the main things I did. I'm a great believer in researching something. When you're going to do something personally, you have to do your own research, and it's when you're doing your research and you're looking for certain things, I believe deep down, you know, there's something that tells you know what to look for. The research I started to do was it was about the medication. Now, obviously, the doctor tells you go to take the medication. There is side effects. If there is any side effects you're feeling, go straight back to the doctor, and they'll give you something else. But my training mind, James, it was never. I didn't believe a pill was the answer. Just take a tablet. Just have a tablet, because my thought process behind it, like saying, going through my research, was if I go to the doctor with a sore back, the doctor, general practice, will give me ibuprofen and a painkiller. The injury's still there. The tablets they'll take the pain away, but once the tablets stop, the pain's still there. Or you might still get the pain with the tablet. So the doctor's doing his best and doing what the resources he's got is to take it. And it's like, it was great help to start off with, but for me, I was still left with this feeling of this, even though I was taking the tablets. Do you know what I mean? I mean, and me personally, imagine if I started to think, but that can't be right. Do you know what I mean? That can't be right. I mean, I don't want to keep going back to the doctor asking for different tablets all the time, and understood that depression was in the mind. So I started to look into some form of psychology and going to speak to a specialist of the brain that could maybe pinpoint where the problem lay. Yeah. That's it. And, you know, you again, do your research, people, because it is important. You know, you've got to know what you're putting into yourself, and that's what we think. You know, a tablet's not going to help it, but sometimes it will. But all I'm saying out there, I'm not saying stop your medication, but please do your research, and do your research on your illness, and it's important to do that. So your decision to see a counsellor, Chris, can you touch on that a wee bit about how did you get to that decision? Obviously, you know, through your family and your good wife. Could you touch on that? I was through Jenna, through her work. She had, she got through her work like a kind of support for. I mean, it covered everything. There was like dental, there was different things, and one of the things was mental health problems. Like I said before, when I first went to the doctor years when I was 21, and they at that point gave me numbers to phone somebody, and I never took them up on it. In fact, I think I had one phone consultation, but I was also always dead of the mindset, James, how can somebody help me who doesn't know me? They don't know a thing about my life, and I never gave this help any thought process or any credit for what I've actually done. But at this particular time in my life, I knew, and as soon as I spoke to this person, I knew. The research I had done, the reason I decided to go go for a special kind of counselling session, a psychologist, was because I started. We touched on it before we went live about your kind of subconscious and your conscious mind, and your subconscious mind holds. Just see a comment from my sister. I got upset.
Listen, man. Like I say. Yeah, I'm putting the comments up because I just want to show you how much people care about you, you know, and it's important that you've got a support network out there, and it's great, you know, and touching on this subject, you know, that just shows you all the love. And for people out there as well, you know, look at the support Chris is getting. You'll be able to get that support as well if you're suffering with depression. It's there. It's all there. Never think it's not, you know. So again, like I say, Chris, can you touch on how you know, because obviously touching on this subject, I know I keep getting back to that. How did it change your life? You know, coming out of that, right? Coming out of the support, and you know, obviously your personal dealings with it. How it changed your life and thinking in a different mindset, and you know, trying to overcome that battle.
Do you mean like my road to recovery type thing?
Your road to recovery, your mindset, and how you had to adapt that.
So I believe that when I had this problem, I had to find what the root of the problem was. And once I found what that root of the problem was, I could make peace with that. I could make peace with my past almost. If you've heard it said before, people make peace with their past. But I believe that's what I had to do. So the first thing I had to do was sit down with my dad and have a real deep, hard conversation with my dad, which was that was tough to do, because you see your dad looking at his son and he's trying to think to himself, did I cause this? But he never, it wasn't nothing to do with him. But from him to hear that was something fucking really, really tough. Must be hard. But we got through that, and we made a peace with the whole thing. And moving on from that, James, now in life, it's all about positivity. It really, really is. Everything you do is positivity. You have two choices in life. And it sounds so simple. And it's very difficult for somebody with depression to follow these two simple choices, or to follow this. It's not easy, and it's an ongoing process. And I've not beat anything in that. It's still a learning process. I mean, I'm beautiful one. A journey I love now is to be positive. You've got negative and you've got positive. Just be positive. Just find the positive in something. And it's like I said, it's not as easy as that. It really isn't as easy as that, especially when you're. Because previously, James, I tried to, before I got to the bottom of my depression, I tried so hard to help others. I tried to be positive, and it just seemed like the negative was just too heavy. It was always winning the battle. Do you know what I mean? It was always winning the battle. But once I started to understand that depression's something, and this is, I believe this truly, depression is something I'll never ever beat. I don't think you can beat depression. I think you have to level with depression and understand that the both of you are on this journey. And you need to understand.
You've got to accept it.
Yeah, find the trigger points.
You've got to accept it. You know, and
that's my thing now. So I start to feel now I understand and accept it when I do start to get down, because it still happens. I'm not 100 all the time. I'm not. It's not that. I mean, it's like I said earlier on. Some mornings, basically every morning I wake up and I'm still looking for that reason to I don't want to do this anymore. And that's what depression is. There's never going to be a time when I'm going to be super happy all the time. But the happiness outweighs the sadness by far now. So every morning when I get up and I beat that, I look at something positive. I find something positive and I build on it. I get myself up and I go and exercise. And I get myself out in the fresh air. Do you know what I mean? And that's my thing. James, I'd blown up to 17 stone, believe it or not. With the state I was in, I wasn't training. I wasn't doing anything. And now that I'm back training, I'm back to a good weight. I feel strong. I feel healthy, and it's about building on these. It's about building kind of momentum. Find something to kind of focus on and build on it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean? That's it, and it's all about as well. For me, it's about mindset as well, because if you're battling that, you've got to think. You know, I've got to accept this. It's who I am, and it's what I am. It's always going to be with me. But you know, you can battle it. There's easy ways, like Chris said. There's easy ways to find that trigger point, and you know what's up with you, so you know how to make that better. And like we were touching on,
go back to the the stigma. Sorry, that I think that's one of the biggest things about the stigma is admitting you've got this, we'll say flaw, you've got this thing about you, and when people find out what's depression's kind of labelled as a sadness. And if you're admitting you're sad all the time, it kind of, with the stigma, people might think they're weak with it. But James, I'm a tough lad. And that depression brought me to my knees, you know, and it doesn't matter how tough I was, it brought me to my knees. So I'm quite happy to say that right now, me and depression, we're pretty good. We're good just now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely, Chris. And I've been there. I know what it's like. It brings you to your knees, but you can deal with it. People out there, you know, you can, and you will get over it. You'll learn to accept it, and you'll be fine. It's okay to be okay. That's a 100%. A quote that gets used all the time. You know.
Yeah.
So can we touch on what you're doing now? Because obviously you've came through that battle, and you know, as we get further on in the story, you know, you have your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club. You know, you're helping others. Because I've been up there, and it's a great club for anybody out there thinking of starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Get yourself to Chris's club. It is a fantastic atmosphere, you know, and it's a friendly atmosphere, a family atmosphere, and that's what it's about up there. And Chris has really made that into a family. So can you touch on about kind of helping others and with mental health as well? Yeah,
I would love to from the Jiu-Jitsu perspective. I've got a shout out to my coach, my Professor Ricky Gillen at Gracie Baha Glasgow. He's been a rock to me in terms of some of the problems I've had. His wife Donna as well. They've always been there for me and Jenna. Recently they've been fantastic. But just a wee thing on Jiu-Jitsu as to why it's, I mean, a lot of people that do Jiu-Jitsu find it almost addictive, and what it is, and how I found it so beneficial for somebody with mental health. First of all, it's a community. You're not alone. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of group, a lot of friends, and it's a very friendly kind of circle of people. Second of all, in practicing Jiu-Jitsu, you become to understand how valuable you actually are. It's not about battering anybody. It's not about fighting. It's about understanding the value you as a person has. When you're rolling with your training partners or you're doing specific techniques, you're achieving something in that hour that you train. Now, you might feel through your day-to-day life that you're not achieving much, that you're not going to come to much. But for that hour when you're on the mat training with your training partners, you might achieve a technique, you might achieve a simple submission, or you might perform a sweep, or you might perform whatever, a takedown, or whatever it may be. But you've achieved something. I know it sounds such a small thing, but for somebody with a mental health problem, it's you that's done it. And that's what you need to understand, that you are that valuable. You can do that. It's just, and with the Jiu-Jitsu kind of community, they're very, as I say, they're very friendly, easygoing kind of circle to be involved in. You know what I mean? But it's only recently I've started to realise that translating through life, Jiu-Jitsu gives you the ability to break things down and understand that where I came from my mental health background, Jiu-Jitsu was probably a big part to let me understand the healing process of it. Like we spoke earlier on about certain positions in Jiu-Jitsu and certain submissions, that's the goal, to submit somebody, but the process towards that, there's so many steps to it. You don't just go boom, submitting. You have to go through certain specific steps. And with me, I kind of used that and translated that into life. That to beat my depression, or to level with my depression, I had to take certain steps. I had to go through certain things. I had to tick certain boxes to get to kind of where I am now, James.
Yeah, and can you tell us how Jiu-Jitsu changed your life, Chris? Because certainly when I started training Jiu-Jitsu, it did mine, you know, and that's Chris is true in what he's saying about everything, because he's a coach first and foremost, you know, but it does literally change your life. And I touched on that when we were speaking earlier, you know, it makes you into a better person. Can you touch on how it changed your life, Chris?
It changed my life because it gave me the ability to see that I was valuable, that I could achieve things, that I wasn't as damaged as my mind would lead me to believe. When I went on the mats to train, all my worries, all my struggles had left me. Now, when you're like depression, it relates quite similar to it. Like depression is such a mental illness, is such an individual case. I don't think any two cases are the same, and that's why more people should speak about it and most people should talk, because it's such an individual illness. And I kind of, in the same way, Jiu-Jitsu is such a individual sport. It's you in the moment, searching for answers, looking for ways to stay alive, looking for ways for you to get out of a certain position. You don't have time to think about anything else other than being in the moment. And that's where Jiu-Jitsu changed my life and gave me the understanding nowadays to see things, to live in the moment, to be in the moment. Don't just rush by life. You'll waste it. Take your time and enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. And you know, can you touch on about the mental health, because you were coaching for mental health? people with poor mental health as well. Can you touch on a wee? Is that still available, Chris?
It's still available. Obviously, with the COVID thing just now, James, it's not particularly happening just now. But yes, it is. We run it on a Sunday. For anybody that is struggling with mental health, it's an open class. It's a free class. I always believe in giving back. If you can give back to people, now it's still very difficult for people to come along to a group class where they have these certain mental problems or mental kind of illnesses. But all I can say is, come along, get in touch, come along, train. If all you do is come down and meet people and you don't particularly want to train or get involved too much, you just want to sit in the company and see what it's all about, come down and talk to me. You're in good hands, you're in good company. It's free of charge. It's going to get you fit and it's going to get your mind working. You're not going to dwell on things. You're going to be, your mind would be active. It will kind of stir the juices up, if you like.
Yeah, that's it. And Chris will get in touch with you, like I say. He'll speak to you and he'll take everything on board, because he helped me when I was going through some things. I sent him a message telling him why I couldn't make it, and he was very good with me. And like he says, it's a family atmosphere, it's a community. So get yourself up to Chris's classes; they're fantastic. So obviously now your fitness, we're touching on mental health. It's great for the people to know how important fitness is, mate. Can you touch on that, please?
Yes,
how it helped you?
Can. Yeah, I certainly can, mate. It was exercise. I've read it so many times in the research I've done, and it was actually way back. Exercise is key. I don't care what anybody says. Exercise is key to a healthy mind, a healthy body, healthy mind. Now, a lot of people say something. I've got an injury. I can't go and run. I can't do anything. But they can walk about the house fine. So strap on your shoes and go and walk. Just walk. Just go and do something. Do anything. Sit on the couch and do bicep curls. It's imperative that we train. Us as human beings are designed to hunt and run and train and stimulate the mind. We're designed for that. And in this day and age, with everything that's going on, we find ourselves stuck. We find ourselves not wanting to do anything. There's so much stuff on the telly that we want to watch, and we're eating so much rubbish, and the body just slows down. And eventually you take the easy road out. I'm not bothered doing it. And everybody wants to get fit. And if you say to somebody, what do you believe? Everybody knows deep down, James, what you need to do to be fit, to be healthy. Now, the reason I say that is not everybody knows how to combat mental health, but everybody knows how to be healthy. A healthy body leads to a healthy mind. And when you ask them that, they'll tell you that they need to eat their vegetables, eat their chickens, lay off the fast foods, drink plenty of water, and exercise. Everybody knows the recipe. But not a lot of people make that positive choice, that positive decision to go and work on that. Now, is it easy? No, it's not easy. Sometimes I'd much rather sit in a KFC, James, than sit and eat a chicken breast with asparagus or whatever. No, do you know what I mean? But you make the sacrifices, your body becomes healthy, and your mind becomes healthy. Your mind will follow. But it's just to touch on that, it's all down to you. You've got to want to do it. And there is help there. Seek the help, get the help. But as far as your body as a vessel is concerned, train. Go and eat properly. Go and take care of what God gave you. Go and have a look at that. Go and treat it properly. And you'll come out the other end of it healthy and happy.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's a bit, again, like we touched on, routine. It's a bit training the mind to get in tune with the body, to get in tune, because it's all interlinked, and like having depression, everything's interlinked with that, your medication, how the mind thinks. So this is how we need to get into it. We need to get into routines, because that's going to help our mental health in the long run. Getting up in the morning, making your bed, start from there. That's what I started doing, and that helped a lot. Routine's important. Can you touch a wee bit about routine as well, Chris, please?
My routine is, I'm obsessed with training again. I'm obsessed with life and training. So my routine, I'll basically, as soon as I get up, I'll do my bit. I'll get my trainers on, I'll get my shorts on, and I'll go and run. And that's just as simple as that, James. And I get that in. Then I'll come home and I'm sitting with my wife for a bit of breakfast, and I'll do a wee circuit in the morning. Now, the routine that I give myself is not particularly that. It was for a while a specific time I must train. My routine basically, James, is every single day I must train. It doesn't need to be a really arduous training, just strenuous training session. but I have to get the lungs opened up and I have to get the heart pumping. You'll thank yourself for it. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes I have this mental battle where, like I said earlier on, you have this wee voice inside your head saying, Chris, just relax. You trained really hard yesterday. If I listen to that wee voice, then I'm going to go back into that sad way again. Once I finish training, and you know this yourself, the minute you finish training, you feel $1 million.
Oh,
you
my
feel
goodness.
brilliant. Before you start to train, you feel really shit. I cannot be bothered. But you get a couple of minutes into your session and you feel fantastic after it. So my routine, James, all I can basically put it down to is every single day I train. That's it. That's simple as that. Every single day.
And that's it. You know, you've got to keep the endorphins up. You know, it's important that we
100%.
have that, because if we don't keep the endorphins up, the mental health will get worse and worse. So yeah, Chris is right. You know, it's about getting up. Even if you're tired, if you've got 4 hours sleep, 2 hours sleep, get out and get the shoes on and run, man. You know, get out and do your rolling, because you know what? That tiredness will eventually fade. You know, and you'll feel it 1,000,000 times better after it. You can always sleep the next night, but don't worry about it. Get out there and train. So you've been putting a lot of Herbalife stuff up in your. I've noticed recently on your Facebook, and I think Herbalife's a great nutrition brand. Could you touch on what you're doing with that, please? Because again, we're talking about nutrition. Sell yourself. You know?
Yes, that's kind of my kind of full-time thing just now. I was very lucky to. By the way, for any of you listening around, there is a lot of negativity about Herbalife, and I'll give you a wee quick insight as to my history with Herbalife and why I've chose to take it on board. I was sceptical of it at first, James. I really was, and a lot of guys. I was an old school trainer, loads of protein, loads of heavy weights, doing all that stuff. That was my thing.
I'm still the same.
So most guys are. And I was very lucky that one of the guys I've got a lot of time for, Darren Clark, who runs Gracie Baja 5, shout out to Darren if he's listening. He had spoke to me about it before, and I was a wee bit... Actually, at that time, life, things weren't quite popping off. I was in a bad place. I didn't really want to be involved in anything. I was just going to mind me place. But I followed Darren's journey, and I started to watch Darren competed in the British Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And his whole nutrition plan was based on Herbalife, James. So my thing with it was how does Herbalife translate to a performance athlete, somebody who a combat athlete, somebody who's training? Because it's a really strenuous thing. And Darren went out. He's very high level, black belt under Brazillian stigma. He's a really great man and a really good friend. Once I'd seen him competing, winning gold at his weight and winning gold in the open weight, every fight won by submission, and breezed it. Absolutely breezed it. I thought, right, okay, he might have been training hard, but his nutrition's got to be on point. That's one of the main things. And I thought, I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to get involved in that. And since I did get involved in it, me and Jenna, my wife, and my mother, my sister, my brother, my dad, a lot of people, a lot of friends are on it as well. I find the stuff fantastic. It's not a meal replacement, what everybody think. It's what I would call a nutritional replacement. It gives you all your vitamins, minerals that you need to perform whatever you're doing. It's great for keeping your body healthy. The stuff is insane. So if you want to get in touch.
I've looked into and Ronaldo. He's one of the ambassadors for them.
He's a top man. There's a lot of
so like I say,
athletes.
So if people are training out there, you know, and you're trying to combat mental health as well, you know, you've got to think about your nutrition, because you are what you eat. And like Chris said, you know, if guys are winning gold medals and they're training hard, but their nutrition's right, you know, it's all interlinked again. It's about routine.
Yes.
Get your training right, but get your nutrition right. It's important, you know. Like I say, so can you tell us what? Obviously, you're doing the Herbalife, you're selling it, but it's not just about, is it? It's about trying to change people's minds on nutrition in it and seeing it for what it really is. Is it as important, you know?
Yes, it's a good point. Yeah, it's I find it a very simple way to get people to the right nutritional levels that they should be at. I mean, it's there's a lot of ups and downs and what people think about it, but having a healthy, balanced diet is fantastic. It really, really is, and it's huge. It's one of the most. But to get the right amount of vitamins and minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, proteins in one sitting it can be quite an arduous task. It can be quite. I mean, there's people like this. No, you meal prep, do these things. Yes, I've been there and done it myself. Yeah. But for my particular time in life, and what I believe is, it's perfect for my body. Now I'm training harder than I've ever trained. Back and doing jiu-jitsu with the team. We're obviously in a fitness-based thing because of the COVID thing. I feel alert. I feel happy. It's all about getting people on a healthy lifestyle, getting people on a level where the body is given the right nutrition. Now, people think Herbalife's just a shake. It's not that at all. That's the kind of forefront of it, the kind of breakfast shakes. But there's so many different products on Herbalife that, I mean, I really can't speak highly enough of it. I've trained all my days. I've done meal plans. I've taken all sorts of different proteins. I've watched my diet. For me, it's insane. It really, really is. So shout out to Dan Clark for getting us involved. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good nutrition company, people. So if you buy into Chris's knowledge, it's all, see, at the end of the day, what you lead in life is about knowledge. You know, if you've got the knowledge and you present yourself in a way that, you know, you're practicing what you preach, then you've got all the knowledge in the world. That's what I believe. And you've got to buy into somebody's way of thinking. And, you know, I buy into your way of thinking, you know, and like I say, I've trained at jiu-jitsu. I've done my own nutrition. I was able to do that. But, you know, Chris is really trying to make a change with jiu-jitsu and, you know, his nutrition. So if MD's going to buy into him, please do, because the guy knows his stuff, you know, like I say.
Thanks, mate.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
No, not a problem. It's about investing in the people in the community, and that's what I'll preach to I pass away. You know, you've got to invest in others and your own community, because you know what, they're the lifeblood of this. Coaches, volunteers, people that are doing nutrition, you know, people that are selling. Invest in these people, you know.
Help each other along.
Yeah, totally agree. Chris, you've been an absolute sport tonight. I think we've went over an hour, which isn't bad, but listen, it's been a great chat, and I've enjoyed having you on, but let's talk about the future for jiu-jitsu, yourself, your family. You know, what does the future hold? Right now, you're okay with mental health. Mental health's okay with you. As we touched on, you know, like we say, we don't know when it's round the corner. But right now, what does the future hold for you?
The future holds for me just now. I mean, you're saying about for jiu-jitsu and for family life. I'm still at the stage just now, James. It's day to day for me, mate. And we're going. I could dream about these different things and have a big fancy thing. Me and Jen are actually trying to have a baby. So that's the thing that we're planning for. So good, I'm very tired, but we're doing good, if you get what I mean.
That'll get you tired, mate. That'll get you tired.
Yeah. Keep me fat. Thank God to take care of life. But for just now, James, with my situation, it really is for me to give the best to other people. I have to invest in myself on a day-to-day basis now. Whatever the future holds, I'm not going to put too many thoughts. I've got goals in place, but they're all based on my self-development just now, because for me to get the best out of my marriage or my family life, I have to be the best version of myself. If I'm not, then it's only going to kind of, not poison, but it's going to put a strain on the things. So apart from the baby side of things, which fingers crossed, everybody that's listening, keep your fingers and toes crossed for us. It's about day-to-day life for me, mate. It's about just kind of going through life and being positive, being happy, making sure other people are happy. But like you said earlier on, being positive, it reflects positivity to others. So if you can be positive yourself, you're going to give that to others. It's going to make it very easy for other people to be happy. You know what I mean? So
that's it. It's all life's about positivity, people. And you know, your life will be positive if you think. It's that mindset. Try to, you know, if you are suffering with mental health out there, try and get that mindset, because it's so important. You know, guys like Chris coming on, sharing their story. You know, he's investing in himself. You know, mental health is okay with him, and you know, that's important that we do invest in ourselves, because our own mental health matters. And like we said earlier on, and we touched on, family are there for you, people. You know, you can reach out to anybody, even a stranger. Chris reached out to somebody he never knew at a group, you know, and from there he took on, you know, all that knowledge and done his research on his illness. So people, if we're going to touch on anything here, it's knowledge about what's wrong with you, and you know, you can make that better if you do your research and you know, put that positivity in your life. Everybody will achieve their goals.
Yes,
but, you know,
definitely.
life comes with investing in yourself. That's the most important thing.
That's true. I believe that's what the thing is. I think if you invest in yourself, believe in yourself, search for happiness, be happy, find happiness. Everything else round about you'll fall into place, James. Everything else will.
Yeah, I totally agree. So the future's looking rosy. Try to have a baby, that's a good thing, man. And a kid coming into your life is such an amazing thing. They can be wee buggers at times, but it's all about the love, man. It's all about the love.
Life's all about. I said, how does my Jenna need a baby when she's got a massive baby sitting here, a big baldy head?
Oh, listen, man, I'm going bald as well, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really. Aye, true. Listen, Chris, it's been an absolute honour coming on. You've been a big inspiration to me for jiu-jitsu, and you give me your time when I needed it, like I say.
It's all about, mate. Yep.
I think you're an inspiration to your family, to everybody out there, and I can only commend you for coming on here and speaking about mental health and really lifting the stigma with Mind Over Matter and myself, because it's a tough ride, man. It's a tough ride.
Life's a tough ride, but the other side of struggle is growth, and growth becomes happiness. So one thing before I go, anybody else that is struggling, there is help out there. Go and get it. As soon as you feel it, go and speak to the doctors, get medical advice, do your research yourself, but you've got to want to do it. Things aren't as bad as you think they are. They're never as bad as you think they are. And you'll find that when you open up and speak to people. So my advice, go and get your mental health checked and speak up. Yeah,
that's it. And Chris, is there anything you want to shout out before we go? Because I know there'll be a lot of people you want to kind of,
just
talk about. Because I think
everybody that's crossed paths with me, everybody in life's got the ability to affect your life in different ways, good and bad. So I could shout out personal things, but just thanks to everybody, every single person that's been there for me, every single person that's gave me their time, every single person that's texted to see how I am at times, even if I've not replied. It's very important that you've got a circle round about you. So every single person, thank you very much for anything. If you've ever came in contact with me, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing, Like I say, anybody can enter your life at any time. There's always going to be some positive out it. It's important that you've got to think that way, because anybody can bring positivity to your life. It doesn't matter if it's bad. See, if it's bad, you can still take the positivity out it.
There is a positive in every single situation, and that's what I've learned recently. People say, "Oh, my life's so negative, it's so negative." Life's only negative by how much you let it affect you. Do you know what I mean? Life's only as bad as what you let it affect you. Now, be positive, and those negative won't affect you. Just be positive. Try and be positive and build on it. It's not easy, but try.
Yeah. Listen, it's been beautiful, man. You've been absolutely fantastic, and I appreciate you opening up. This is such a touchy subject, and people will really lifting the stigma here. I hope you can listen to this again and think, do you know what? Chris opened up about his mental health. Not a lot of people would do that, and touch on suicide and stuff. But, sometimes you've got to be a wee bit selfish and tell your story, because everybody's got a story, and your story needs to be told. And that's why we're here. That's why Mind Over Matter's here.
Yep. Superb.
Chris, thank you, man. Like I say, and I wish you all the best for the future and your jiu-jitsu club, and to everybody related to you and all that. What a guy, he is. He's an absolute legend. He's making a difference in the community, helping people, especially with mental health as well.
Thanks, mate. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks again. And listen, take it easy, and we'll do it. If we're going to fight a battle, we'll fight mental health together, and that's what it's all about.
Get your gear on and get back to jiu-jitsu.
I know, I love it. I'm just injured. I've done my Achilles in, man. I'm dying to get back. I love MMA, I love jiu-jitsu, and I love combat sports, and trust me, I'd love nothing to get back to that class, and I think that.
Listen, it's good having you around. You're good to have in the match, so you're welcome anytime.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, honestly.
Take it easy, my man.
Good night. God bless. Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Stay up. Stay smiling, brother. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you. Guys, what a great podcast that was tonight. Really lifting the stigma there. you know, about mental health. You know, we don't tend to do that. We don't tend to lift the stigma with mental health, and we really need to. You know, so for anybody out there that's suffering with mental health and have poor mental health, I have a TAD project that's established in East Kilbride. It's an online hub, and it's for people suffering with poor mental health. And I just want to say it's available to anybody out there, anybody from any region. Doesn't matter what you're going through. You know, you must answer security questions before you get on related to mental health. But if you answer the questions, you can come on, you know, and there's such a support network on there. So I invite anybody out there suffering to come on to this group. The TAD project on Facebook, East Kilbride. So we ran a competition earlier on yesterday, and I'm just going to do the draw right now live on here because it's for a cap and a t-shirt. I Kill the Stigma. Again, try to lift the mental health situation in the community by starting a mental health clothing brand. And I'll announce this winner right now for you. If I can get my phone working. Tonight's winner is Kerry Ann Semple. If you get in touch with the page, we'll get that fired off to you in the post. Thank you very much again for tuning into the Mind Over Matter podcast. It's been absolutely beautiful tonight, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. And again, thank you to Chris Fisher for coming on and telling his story. Good night, stay up and stay smiling, people.
Mind Over Matter podcast is sponsored by Village Blinds. Village Blinds is an independent, family-owned business with branches in East Kilbride, Bells Hill and Clarkston. With over 30 years experience, their mission is simple: to provide each and every one of their customers with the highest quality blinds at an affordable price. Check out Village Blinds on Facebook.